Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, you got a few of us here. We got Bennett and we got Ethan Indigo. And Bennett's got a topic he's going to cover. We're going to be talking about dark DNA. But before we introduce Bennett, we have my man Ethan Indigo over here. Let everybody know what's up with him.
Well, peace on earth. Ethan Indigo Smith here, writer, author, researcher occasionally. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I have a couple websites, a couple books out there. Geometry of Energy is the most popular and easy to find online. And always appreciate being here. Thanks, you guys.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. I like how you said researcher occasionally.
I like that.
I've been so busy with the gravity of the mundanity that it's been hard recently. But
gotcha.
More to
amazing.
Yeah.
Researcher occasionally. That's a t-shirt,
like,
man. That's what that is.
I was like, the amount of books he's written, just posts and stuff.
Right?
He has to research for all that. Like, yeah. He's so humble. He's always so humble. I love it, Ethan.
Yeah.
You're a good guy. But thank you for making it. I always appreciate you being here. Bennett, my man, please.
Yeah. So Bennett Tanton from the Broadcasting Seeds podcast. I'll get the shameless product placement out of the way right away. I've got a brand new book out called The War You Didn't Know You Were In, Understanding and Winning the Spiritual Battle. See, I can't even say it. It's too long. Stupid. So that's the book. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at my website, all the things. What's that called? Broadcastingseeds.com. It's the website. I'm just really bad. I'm really bad at self-promotion, dude, but
no, that I get it. Writers are generally so. I totally empathize. Can I ask, what is the direction that you go? Because I love the title. I love the concept.
Yeah. So growing up, I was plagued with trauma as a kid, abused and I'm adopted, and it was just not a good childhood. So at the end of the day, I did that. Then I was I had that issue. Then I went into the military, and that had its own set of challenges. And I found myself coming out and literally just feeling, I got to a point where I literally was, and I've always been in the church. My dad was a pastor. We used to go to church all the time, and he wasn't a practicing pastor per se. He was a theologian, right? But either way, we jumped around churches and whatnot. So nothing ever quite fit, but I always felt oppressed. Does that make sense? So and finally I decided to do something about it one day. And this book is kind of a culmination of the things that I used, learned, and researched and put together to kind of clean myself, it's basically from a Christian perspective, but you could use it's a guidebook, literally, and you could use it non-religious. You could do whatever, but it's a way to rid yourself of entities that you don't want associated or attached to you. We all do dumb shit when we're young, and regardless of what we want, there's good and there's bad. There's light and there's dark, and sometimes the dark doesn't want what you want. And so ever since I've gone through the process of doing it, I've been very free, and I use many of the techniques now to stay, safe, I guess is what you could say, with some of the work that I do. And I put myself out there, and but I pray for protection. All the stuff. So yeah.
What up, Bonnie?
That's great. Sounds awesome.
So it's been well received. Everyone that's read it, even my wife, she's my biggest critic, has been like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And it's really good. I've had a couple incidents with different, I guess you would call them entities, since I've been with her, and she's seen stuff firsthand. So, and then she's seen the change afterwards. So it's pretty powerful stuff, but it's not complicated or dogmatic or anything. So I think that's the difference with that. It's, I try to, as Nick knows, I try and stay away from dogma in any form or fashion, for anyone or anything. I'm open to all of it. So yeah, man.
Nice. Yeah. Well, eventually got to get you on the show. Talk about
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah. One thing I do want to ask, a silly question. I'm just trying to help you out here. If people are interested in getting this book, is there a site that might be more monetarily beneficial for them to purchase from?
Oh no, because my
site, your website, you might.
Yeah, it's all Amazon, man. Oh, Bezos okay. Gets all the money, unfortunately.
Okay. I thought maybe you were sending them out yourself at the website.
No, the only way to because I'm not really. I mean, as Ethan can say, I didn't write this book to make a profit, and as you can see, the price isn't profitable.
Most people I know
sure
do say that. Even like,
and I really, if I could afford to give it away, I would, and I do. I've given away, I don't know, probably close to 50 copies already. So it's just,
oh, damn, what a nice
guy. I can't. It's knowledge. I feel like that's kind of should be out there, and I mean, you can buy it. That would be greatly appreciated too. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a point too, probably, where at least the ebook is going to be completely free. The first week or the first 10 days that it was out, it was free online. Anyway, It's not now. That's over, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's, information that anyone should and could know,
nice.
And should know. So
yeah, I would someone tells me,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna talk about writing in broadly, but please finish.
No, I was just saying. I was gonna say actually that you understand what I'm talking about, probably.
Yeah, I do, and I whenever someone says that they're planning on writing a book, I say I would wish that on anyone. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, kind of jokingly, because it's really a difficult and obsessive process. And not necessarily monetarily rewarding. However, there are so many direct benefits that result from writing. For instance, codifying all these techniques and contemplating them to refine them. For instance, I know I've done that several times with ideas that might be similar to what you put forth. And then sharing it, you get the response from people about things that you might not have even thought about. Or directions that you weren't even intending on going, and it's a really rewarding undertaking to write. For the writing.
For sure. I'm right. So of course now see, I actually had this book done mostly. I'd say it was 90% of the way a year ago. But I did not post, or I didn't publish it because I don't know if you've ever had him on the show. I don't think you have, but Bo Kennedy is his name, from the Bump podcast. He put out a spiritual warfare book.
Oh shit.
About a year ago. Cool. And I was like, damn, man, I'm not gonna layer them on top. So either way, and I'm gonna have Bo. Bo doesn't know that story, but he's gonna be on my show next. Yeah, like the first week of February. So I'm going to tell him the story, but yeah. So I already started writing another book about cryptids, but it's not just strictly cryptids. It's not strictly Bigfoot, Dogman, lake creatures and stuff like that. It is, but it also dives deep into the psychology of it too. So it takes a little bit of a different turn than a lot of the other books. So yeah, so that'll probably be out, I don't know, a few months. So something like that.
Nice. So DNA, dark DNA.
Dark DNA, man.
Unfortunately, I know I had asked you before recording. I said, what even got you interested in that topic? And like, maybe we should wait till we record.
Yeah. So, all right. So I explained earlier, traumatic life. Uh, um, and so I was really, I have 4 daughters. That's also karmic, as far as I'm concerned, because karma's a vengeful bitch. Either way, I love them all, of course. And the one thing I always say is I'll never be homeless. So that's a good thing. Right. 'Cause one of them's bound to still love their dad at some point. So with that being said, I was like, some of them they've lived, I wouldn't say, it's not like I've been able to give them this blessed life. I guess, they definitely haven't had the hardships that I did as a child, but they still have there's ingrained trauma there. Okay. And that's how I was reading it. You also know, Nick, we've talked about this. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the show, but I can see auras.
Yeah. And you remember I said I was going to bring you on the show for that with Heather.
Yeah. So I had I guess what you would call a near-death experience without the near-death experience. I don't remember anything other than waking up to, puking water over the side of the boat that they had resuscitated. I drowned in open ocean. Which was a surreal experience. But either way, ever since then, I have seen, there's no other way to describe it, but it's auras around folks, and I can see colors and kind of like shapes, not really shapes, but like there's different things that happen with people's like maybe their fields. Like sometimes people are what I would call sparky. There's some things else that I can see as well. So with that being said, I can see some of these trauma points within them that I know because when I worked in mental health services that I've seen in other people, I see them in my daughters, and my daughters have not had any of this trauma. So I was like, what the hell is going on? So I started looking into trauma and DNA. Well, holy shit. Turns out that you can absolutely pass trauma onto your children and grandchildren through your DNA. So that's not the dark DNA. That's not what I'm saying. The dark DNA is what they now call was called junk DNA a few years ago, right? So you hear this term, dark DNA now, that basically replaces junk DNA, which is about 98% of our DNA, and they have no idea, at least they had no idea what this did, any of it did. 2%, 3% of our, the DNA proteins and whatnot are what make us who we are and express in the way that, your eye color, your hair color, the way that you do, the way that you are and you express. But there's 98% of that's essentially, they had coined the term junk DNA. Well, now they call it dark DNA. Okay. So dark DNA is not evil genes, right? Or what it is unexpressed, regulated, and suppressed genetic, I guess what you would call potential that exists inside every human being, right? And modern biology already confirms that you do not just inherit genes, you inherit also how they are turned on or off. And that's the field that people are starting to talk about more and more, called epigenetics. Have you guys heard of this?
Yeah. Lisa was speaking to that shit, actually. She talked about it on the show.
Yeah. So I really look at DNA as more kind of like it's more like a piano than a fixed song, right? Your life, trauma, environment, your beliefs and stress, your diet, the way you pray, the relationships, they decide which keys get played in your DNA. But some keys stay locked, right? So what makes it dark in science is simply means it's called dark DNA because it's unobserved, inactive, and not yet understood, right? So just like dark matter, junk DNA, or non-coded RNA, over 98% of that human DNA does not code for proteins, but it is absolutely not useless, for sure. And it controls when genes activate, how cells can specialize in things, and how the immune system responds to stress and trauma, and how those get stored, right? How disease turns on and off, all these things. This is all just wild, right? So, yeah, I guess that's a good opening, you know?
It's very interesting.
Sorry how you got all the way there. Say it again, Ethan.
It makes me think of the input of psychological or physical practices like yoga and tai chi and qigong. I think behind that is a lot of turning off negative proceedings and turning on positive ones.
Absolutely, I would agree. There's so much of this stuff. You can, in essence, control to an extent. Especially we know one of the things that can really control stuff is like meditation, breathing, and then even like diet, right? So we do know that trauma, especially, but not just like, it's trauma from all kinds of stuff, right? So it doesn't just affect the mind. It rewrites gene expression across generations. And this is proven. And I get some pushback on this sometimes because Holocaust survivors were one of the first studies that they did. And they showed trauma markers passed to children. But one of the other big ones is things like famine, even slavery and war, and abuse, right? That means fear, oppression, abuse, homelessness, addiction, violence, any traumatic stuff. And that you totally, more than likely, will pass some of this stuff on to your children. And it's just kind of wild.
If you ever see a homeopath, they will ask you about your personal trauma and familial trauma.
Absolutely.
And by way of not necessarily is the physical display of what's wrong, it's really usually rooted in, something else behind that is a homeopathic theory.
Absolutely. And I would agree that there's certain things that are stored in like different things can be stored different places too, right? Like I have a lot of back pain, and it's because I had some, but it's not just like physical injury, right? It's literally like that's where I hold a lot of my like traumas in my hips. It's really bizarre. But like if I go get like a Reiki, they can clear that, right? It's bizarre, but it's really cool. And I guess there's a point when dark DNA kind of becomes a cultural question as well. And here's where I step very carefully because this is where, speculation kind of starts to creep in. Because if large portions of our DNA regulate behavior, stress, perception, and adaptation, then it opens the door to bigger questions, right? So like, why do certain human traits keep reappearing across cultures and time? And why do responses feel almost like they're preloaded? We see this in lots of cultures, right? And science doesn't say this DNA contains memories per se or ancient knowledge, but it does suggest that we carry biological predispositions shaped by like long chains of lived experience. And this isn't mystical yet. This is evolutionary and epigenetic for sure. You know, because then you can get into the non-human DNA claims, and why does that matter, right? So when people bring up non-human or unknown DNA, things get really conversational pretty quickly when I bring that up to people. But there have been forensic cases and environmental samples where genetic material doesn't cleanly match known reference databases. And I bring this up because of the Sasquatch Genome Project, or what you would call, there's an actual name for it. And it's a DNA study done on Sasquatch. And a lot of people don't know anything about it because it was frankly suppressed, right? It's actually called, and you can look it up and go through it yourselves, guys. It's called the Novel North American Hominins Next Generation Sequencing of 3 Whole Genomes and Associated Studies. It's a mouthful, right? But at the end of the day, when you start looking into stuff like that, because at one point, I mean, it gets slippery when you start really thinking about who inhabited Earth, right, at certain times. And we have evidence of, at one point, what you would consider 6 different hominids, 7, I think, actually, existing on the planet at the same time, right? And this is, you know, alleged scientific evidence. Who knows? I'm not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination. I just read a lot, right? And do research like Ethan does sometimes. So when it comes to that, though, you start running into, especially once they've started doing stuff with CRISPR, which I'll get into in a little while, with DNA splicing. And
do you get into happen to come across palindromes on all in your stuff?
Palindromes? I don't know. Nope, I don't think so.
I think I could be completely off. I don't know when Lisa used to go on about, I think, like fucking with DNA.
I mean, they definitely fuck with DNA right now.
Yeah, when you find the palindromes and like code, like sometimes you'll see like when one thing goes to the next, it'll actually be a palindrome, and then that's when you can. It's really, I'm thinking it because you mentioned keys before. That's when you can actually insert.
Oh yeah, and I can go into that. There's some parts in my notes there. It's, you know, I mean, this is all it gets really sciencey, and I don't really. You know, I'm not qualified to go down that road, but this is kind of where I've gone because of this, started this research for my own purposes and my kids, right? And how I could maybe help them. But like when you start talking about, it doesn't automatically mean cryptids, hybrids, or anything exotic, right? It often means sometimes there's contamination or degradation or incomplete databases, right? But it also highlights something important, that our genetic reference library is just not complete. And when we talk about what DNA exists and what doesn't, you can run into some roadblocks because you won't get them, or well, there's no match. Well, what the hell does that mean? No match. Well, it just means that it's not in the database. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because obviously it exists, right? Especially when it comes to ancient populations like extinct hominins like Neanderthals and Denisovans and Homo florensis and things like this, right? Regional genetic variations. So this is where I kind of get, you know, I guess the real quick big takeaway is that the point of talking about dark DNA isn't to jump straight to like wild conclusions, but it's to recognize that we are far less simple than we're taught, period. You know what I mean? DNA isn't just a static instruction manual. DNA is responsive and it listens and it adapts. And in some ways, it remembers. And the more that we study it, the more we realize that human biology sits at this intersection of environment, history, and lived experience. And that alone should change how we think about trauma and health and behavior and even identity. So, I mean, that's kind of a big statement, right? But that's where I go with it.
Oh yeah, what I was talking about before is that's what viruses like. Viruses will look for palindromes inside the sequencing.
Yeah.
And then that's when they'll insert themselves to start changing shit. And that's exactly how the CRISPR they mimicked that for the CRISPR.
Right.
And I know there was something with the palindromes.
Yeah, palindrome. And I don't know why I've never heard that.
Remember that one time I made some corny joke about palindromes inside the chat? I think you were the only one that laughed at it. And I was like, maybe and
like you're right.
She was telling me about this whole thing about how like this shit manipulates through palindromes in sequencing. So I had that.
Right.
That's why I made that cheesy joke about palindromes.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us into like locked DNA, like locking and unlocking these genes, right? Because you have the two main ones, like ways that genes are they're not simply on and off. They're regulated by markers, right? That chemically attach to the DNA and silence to activate genes. So I wonder what a palindrome is. If it's a marker, is that what we is that?
Well, that would be like sequencing would be like 5. Let's say it was like 5, 6, 5, 1. There'd be 1, 5, 6, 5, whatever. It'd be the opposite, like flip. And then in between those, where those two numbers meet in the middle of the palindrome.
Oh, okay, I see. A sequencing that reads the same forwards and backwards.
Very occult.
To biology, DNA sequences, and even music showcasing symmetry. Ooh, shit. Okay. Yeah, I see.
Even like a lot of biblical names even do that in Jewish.
Yeah, and I guess that's a way that they could read it, right? As well. So, but the two main forms of like ways to chemically, you have DNA methylation, and you have what's called histone modification, and they literally behave like locks and switches on a genome. And again, trauma, famine, stress, abuse, fear add these locks, right? It's not a metaphor. It's chemistry. So we have all the generational stuff. So you can get into, I kind of do go into certain things with like religion to an extent. And I don't really mean religion per se, but you talk about, you can say religion because of the overall arching thing, but whether you believe in God or gods or all these other things, at the end of the day, when it comes to scripture, like in scripture, you've got a covenant is a binding agreement that grants legal access. It almost seems like some of these genetic things, that's what they are. Like spirituality and trauma and sin do the same things biologically, right? And they create behavior patterns and nervous system responses and all these things like addiction loops and emotional, all of it, right? And you can attain, or you can, some of this things is like certain people, and this is where I was talking about with the cultural aspects of some of this stuff, is it seems like bloodlines obviously carry certain traits, right? And that's coded in your DNA. So why couldn't you say that it's also spiritual covenants and they just get attached, right? Things like that. And I've kind of talked about this on other podcasts, but I don't know why I didn't bring those notes with me. But we get into
ask just real quick. I'm not expecting that you did any work on this, just your opinion, maybe. With trauma being encoded into your DNA, could there be possibly like other experiences that are positive that might be encoded in your DNA from your past?
Yeah, I wouldn't say why there wouldn't be. Of course,
right?
I think I absolutely think it would work both ways. I don't think it's always going to be negative. I mean, look at the universe. There's equal and opposite reactions to stuff, right?
Yeah. And sometimes there's the idea of hormesis, where the certain exposure to actual negative poisonous things cause new strength to develop to deal with such. I mean, arguably, the reason we have muscles at all is to deal with gravity. So you could almost say that's an example of kind of a small instance of that, where, you know, it's difficult to deal with. So we developed muscles to deal with it.
Absolutely. And resilience and all kinds of other things, right?
Right.
Especially to things like famine. And
I was thinking in Tai Chi practice, I'm sorry, forgive my poor internet connection, guys. In Tai Chi practice, we talk about evolution in terms of an ongoing thing, and that we're actually kind of inhibited beings right now in our evolutionary process, for we're not really designed to stand, even though we stand.
Right.
Our hips and our lower back, and what is called in Chinese the qua, which is essentially our whole coordinate of our lower back and hips and waist, is considered the qua, below the waist rather. So this is an area that we're constantly dealing with actual gravity influence that's, you know, quite painful.
Absolutely.
So sometimes a stretch is even to just get, and not in any particular way, but just understand that idea that we're not even quite effective animals for standing upright, and get the back parallel with the ground, however you're going to do it. That can really open up the hips and let us deal with gravity and all
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's absolutely great point. I just also, just to comment on what you had said earlier too, is that, you know, one of the biggest things that causes, I guess you would say, now see, people will say evolution, but adaptation is stress, right? And so that adaptation is coded into your DNA. It's coded into your genome. So it's a way of natural, it's like natural CRISPR, right? So getting into CRISPR just a little bit, it's not science fiction. We humans have the ability to rewrite DNA right now. Because we can cut genes, we can insert genes, we can delete genes, we can alter embryos, we can change traits. Somebody brought up the movie to me the other day, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but it had that movie with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman that had like they would have like the designer babies.
Attica?
Yeah, right. This is what we're talking about, essentially, right? And it's a little scary. I mean, it means humanity now has the technological capacity to rewrite the biological rules of our species. And that's frankly unprecedented history. But is it? You know, what's to say back in the day that, especially when you start talking about biblical stuff, and these are just examples, why couldn't hybrids and ancient records? I mean, here we're, again, we kind of shift carefully, right? Ancient culture reports of things like minotaurs and satyrs and the Nephilim and centaurs and dogmen and lion men and giants. These are all in all the history and myths and folklore of every, Sumerian tablet, a Greek myth, and Norse, pick a freaking culture, and they have these stories that all rhyme, right? So I'm not claiming that, they were genetically engineered, but why, then how did they come to being? The consistency of these reports across culture suggests humanity remembers something, right? And that's how I kind of come at that. I'm not claiming any proof, but if CRISPR can do this now, what could advanced civilizations or non-human intelligence do in the past? Right? We talk about it. There's all kinds of theories. Ancient aliens or the Watchers, coming down to Mount Hermon and mating with women, but there's also stories of them mating with animals, things like that. So we have things encoded in our DNA that we can't freaking read at this point. So yes, it's speculation and it's not assertion, but it stays like with my broadcasting seeds, in my broadcasting seeds lane is what I like to call it. And it's patterns without conclusions, right? You also think about super soldier programs that you hear about, in the US military and other militaries, Chinese, the Russians, actively working on gene edited soldiers and enhancing endurance and reducing sleep. And how many times have you heard stories about Dogman or Bigfoot? Now I have, maybe not everyone listening, that's, this is going down a railroad here, right? But that they guard deep underground military bases and all these things, right? But this is all it all kind of rhymes, guys. It all kind of rhymes, and yes, I'm shooting a shotgun right now. I'm not sniping with a rifle, but frankly, it's not conspiracy anymore. Especially when we can show that we know throughout history what we can see, and what we're told is this much of what the actual truth is, right? Throughout history, when everything is actually happening, it's this wide instead of just what we can see. So I look at it as kind of like, go ahead.
Please, no, finish up.
Oh, I was just saying that at the end of the day, this is like the real dark DNA war. And that's kind of like my thesis isn't just monsters. It's that humanity is caught between all kinds of stuff. So.
And that's very profound, because it really points the finger internally, because there's so much going on inside of us that we could change. Someone mentioned the gene keys and human design practice earlier in the chat, and it reminds me too of what is like something that influences every scientific medicine test is the placebo effect, right? And it really, that's kind of a misnomer. It should be the placebo power, right? Because it's not an effect at all. They're measuring the effect of a power, really, right? And that is Absolutely. The power of us changing the whole situation in ways that we didn't know were possible, based on the assumption that it's possible.
Absolutely.
So there definitely is a lot to this that we can I don't want to say manipulate, but we can enhance our condition, I think, a lot just by our mind state, and just being a little more like, there's so much tension in the world, but when we bring attention to ourselves and things, it's like the opposite of tension in a way. A lot of this modality, I think, has this kind of softening attention kind of that helps.
Yes, for sure. I mean, we also know it's not just CRISPR and stuff like we kind of talked about, that we can actually relax our DNA and make ourselves more open to manipulation just through things like meditation and whatnot, just by relaxing, right? And I was just looking for it, but I don't know why I didn't. I thought I saved it, but it was a study that I had looked at. Somehow that fell through the cracks today, but a study that I was looking at that talked about relaxing the genome, or relaxing the coil, right? So it could receive things easier. But I can't find it now. So
relaxation is, I think, such a big lesson. And we don't realize how much tension we operate with until we get a massage, right?
Yes.
Until we focus on softening. That's when we realize, oh, I could release my shoulders a little bit, and maybe that would help X, Y, or Z, or for instance. But there's so many wonderful benefits of relaxation. Yeah. We think we're relaxed, but it's usually we're just not doing anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
A lot to relaxation.
I think one of the big lessons with all of this information, though, is that DNA is not a fixed blueprint. So you're not, gene expression is controlled by chemical markers that act like, locks and switches. We've talked about this already, and that you can actually do things that switch things on and switch things off. Now, of course, we're in our infancy of understanding this, right? But, and I'm not even saying, like with CRISPR and things like that, I'm saying that we can gain control over our own DNA in a lot of ways through practices like, stuff that's taught with Buddhism and even prayer and things like that, right? I fully believe that we can manipulate these things. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's kind of where I go with it, is that you can, I saw somebody had said sins of the fathers, right? And that's all stuff that we can kind of fix, sin patterns and dysfunction, right? Psychological behavioral loops. We can fix these things. And a lot of that stuff is already coded in your DNA. I mean, it's not an excuse to be like, oh, well, God, I'm acting like an asshole because it's coded into my DNA. But that is kind of a thing. So, I look at what I've started calling, I guess you could call them Christians would call them, they would call them strongholds. And like the DNA in essence, like, let's look at it metaphorically too, is that it carries evil spirits, right? Spiritual and emotional realities can shape hormones and nervous system patterns and all that type of stuff. And that's what I'm saying, is that we can manipulate so much of this with our minds and our practices. So
that's beautiful. And all that makes me think of the concept of face reading, which is really from one of the oldest healing practices in China. And it totally works, as you just or articulated, in the sense that the question we don't ask is which came first, the condition or the posture. And we in the West will, of course, say, well, my poor posture is because of my condition. In the East, and relative to face reading, the mind state, it came first to cause the posture. And so with face reading, the practitioners can look at where there are wrinkles and where there are, obviously, kids are so open and untraumatized, even when they're going through it. They're so elusive to trauma, when we are all so elusive to it when we're younger. Kids don't necessarily demonstrate this always, but as we get older, we'll have certain ways that we carry ourselves, and sometimes is as little as the practitioner, the healer, articulating a lesson for the person. And it might be, their left eye relates to their dad and this and that. And it's this one little thing. And the person goes, oh, well, wow, I don't have to carry that. And there are examples of people's faces changing within a session, which is just odd.
It's wild.
It reminds me too of how the right side of our external physical is masculine. The left side is feminine. And we can see this, we can see our mother and father in our faces almost to that point. And in the mind, it's the opposite. There's like this cross reference thing going on inside. In the mind, the right brain controls the left, for instance.
Yeah.
So this just interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, this is like wild stuff, man. Like I'm just, this is what I do, guys. There's a reason my podcast is called Broadcasting Seeds, because I literally just vomit seeds on you and make you go down rabbit holes. This is what I Nick knows this. He hears my shit all the time. He's like, dude, what are you talking about? So it's just what I do.
Well, when you're talking about epigenetics,
yeah, along with scripture and everything else.
Cusp. I've brought up epigenetics before.
Yeah.
Sorry, my internet.
So what? But one of the things I wanted to bring
when
up,
you talk about epigenetics, you're like, I'm on the cusp of things. So props.
Yeah, true. I guess you're right. It's like one of those things,
I've brought that up with people before relative to the transmission of trauma and or knowledge, and they dismissed me as a total
right.
This a year or two has passed. We've come a long way, but when I brought this up before,
and I'll do this with quotations. Now it's proven by science, whatever that means, half the time.
Right.
So one of the things, though, I really started kind of digging into a few weeks ago was this, because I have I've read a few books by a gentleman named Scott Carpenter, who is a Bigfoot researcher who unfortunately has passed away, and I know his son now, and he was part of this that genome study that I read earlier with the stupid long name about North American hominins, right? But this kind of all culminates in that DNA study, all kind of culminates down into, he's got a book that he wrote about it, which I can't find. But it's called Truth Denied, the Sasquatch DNA Study by Scott Carpenter. So I had started rereading that book and going through some of the more, he also has a YouTube channel that you can find all this stuff on, which is the Sasquatch Awareness Project. And his son still maintains that and releases stuff and rehashes it. And he goes through a lot of this DNA study. Also a new documentary by David Pallades, who is the missing 411 guy. That's how most people know him. Called American Sasquatch, and he was part of this genome project as well, the DNA study. But that being said, I kind of wanted to bring up some points when we talk about Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA and just how it is, you know, about human stuff, right? So we already know modern humans carry, I mean, if anyone's done a DNA test, we do know that they carry from other DNA from other archaic humans. Non-African populations carry about 1 to 2% of Neanderthal DNA. And some populations, especially in like Melanesia, and parts of Southeast Asia, carry what's called Denisovan DNA as well. And this isn't really controversial anymore. It's been confirmed through, you know, genome sequencing and population studies. So these genes influence things like immune response and altitude adaptation, skin biology, and even have how we respond to certain viruses, right? But with all that being said, what's less talked about publicly is that not all archaic-like DNA in modern humans matches Neanderthal or Denisovan reference genomes, right? So when researchers analyze certain genetic segments, they find regions that look ancient, clearly non-modern, right? But they don't cleanly align with any sequenced archaic human. And we currently know, or I should say that we currently know. And in academic papers, this is often referred to cautiously, right? Because, oh my God, as introgression from unknown or ghost hominin populations, right? So in that wording is important. Ghost population doesn't mean paranormal, obviously. It means a population that we haven't recovered DNA from yet, but whose genetic fingerprints appear indirectly in living humans. Like we know this, right? And this isn't really guesswork. It's researchers use statistical models to compare mutation rates, as that's what they call them, or haplotypes, and divergence timelines. And some DNA segments show levels of divergence that are just they're way too old to come from Neanderthals or Denisovans, and suggesting they split from our lineage much earlier. In some African population, studies show introgression from hominins that may have diverged up to 1 million years ago, right? So what does that mean? To me, it means Sasquatch is possible as a relic hominin, meaning this DNA project, right? If you break down DNA usually into its two parts, you have mitochondrial DNA, which does track the female side of a genome, right? And then you have the nuclear DNA, which tracks the male side. So the study that we're talking about, this DNA study for Sasquatch, the samples that they collected, cleaned, did all the stuff. You can go through all the, you know, if you're scientifically inclined or you want to read it yourself, then just go find it. I'm sure if I give Nick or somebody can put it in, you know, some sort of link, you just have to look it up by that study and it'll pop right up on Google. But the mitochondrial DNA came back as 100% female human. But the nuclear DNA came back as unknown. So what does that mean, right? People will be like, oh, well, you know, unfortunately, lots of people that would not peer review the study were stating that, you know, this is because contamination and all the excuses that you've ever heard, right? Of all this type of stuff happened. And that's it, right? We're not going to give this the time of day. But the bottom line is, I'm sorry, but like Africa is especially important in this discussion, because ancient DNA preservation is much harder there due to the climate, right? So our reference genomes, they're all incomplete. Yet genetic studies on living African populations show signals from unknown archaic hominins all over the place, right? They don't match what we've already got. So in other words, the absence of fossil DNA does not equal absence of ancient humans, right? Or different types of hominids, right? Relic hominids. So this is where speculation really comes in. But at the end of the day, I feel like we don't know. Again, Nick, what do I always say? We don't know shit. We don't know shit.
I agree with that. Yes.
And this type of stuff just shows that we don't know shit. So wild men, beings of the forest. I mean, this comes from every culture in the world, and I'm not just talking about Sasquatch. There's other things going on here too. I think the core message, though, that I really want listeners to walk away with is that, like, modern humans are not genetically isolated masterpieces that appeared out of nowhere, right? We are composites, and we carry echoes of other human beings who lived, adapted, survived, and some vanished. And some of them were named, and some of them we just haven't met yet through fossils or whatever, right? But their signatures are still writing quietly in our genome. We have them still there. And that alone should make us more humble about how much of our history we truly understand or think that we know, right? And this is not non-biblical. This is not non-Christian. This is not non-pagan. This isn't about all that, because every bit of this can be explained by certain aspects of every religion, every color, every creed of thing, right? There's an explanation for all of this. So I guess that's kind of what I have to say.
Nice. Now I often think about, like,
I was thinking.
You go.
Oh, please, next.
Oh, you go ahead, sir. Maybe you didn't hear me. You want to go ahead, Ethan? You can go, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I will. I was thinking about mitochondria being initially it was a bacteria. It may not have been an infection per se, but mitochondria was introduced into the human body as bacteria, and now it's essential to our immune system function and overall being. There's also I was thinking of the idea you mentioned about how things are essentially turning on and turning off. There is a lot of research right now that, in simple terms, there's a lot more going on, but of course we're laymen. But in simple terms, aging itself is essentially a series of turning on and turning off different attributes, and they're finding some really simple ways to mitigate the aging process. One, for instance, in my research I occasionally do, they found that eliminating protein in the blood system. Am I still there? That there's a way to eliminate certain proteins and large amounts of proteins in the blood, which actually cause certain things to be turned on and turn off in regards to age progression. So there's numerous ways that they're kind of trying to prevent the aging process from occurring via simple kind of instigation.
Oh,
shit.
That's horrible.
Man, freaking internet. Seriously. That sucks.
I think that's the first time I've ever seen that actually happen.
Yeah,
Having
right.
somebody talking and they drop off. It's not like I just see them drop off as somebody else is talking. Damn.
Yeah.
Let's see if he comes back.
Well, so one of the things, I guess another thing that I'll bring up is I had brought up covenants and iniquity and curses earlier, right? And since we kind of, what does he say? He was cooked with, what did he say?
He said he was cooking with gas.
Cooking with gas. Gotcha. So covenants, iniquity, and curses. You've got spiritual agreements, and we all do this. We talked about this with occult practices as well, right? There's agreements that are made with things, right? Not just occult practices, but all kinds of practices, all practices, how spiritual agreements become biological patterns. And I look at what a covenant really is, and like in scripture, and I'll just use that because it's what I'm familiar with. In scripture, a covenant is not a vibe or a promise, right? This is a binding agreement that grants access or authority or inheritance. And you got to think of it as a legal framework that defines what flows through a relationship or a bloodline. I mean, we deal with this stuff in, like, you own a home. That's the same kind of thing, right? That idea maps surprisingly well onto biology, right? And in real life, the things that we choose, especially under stress or trauma, form long-term regulatory patterns in the body. And these patterns get written into all of our systems, right? Did he get knocked off again? No, you're still there. Good.
No, I'm still there. That was beautifully put, Bennett. That's really well so.
So like the nervous system, the hormonal system, the immune system, and through epigenetics and the genome, it's kind of what you were talking about a little earlier. So when the Bible talks about iniquity moving through generations, modern science would describe the same thing as intergenerational biological programming, right? And how trauma and sin become legal access in the body in like spirituality, spiritual practices, when someone experiences or participate in things like chronic fear, violence, sexual abuse, betrayal, addiction, abandonment, their body enters into I guess the best way to describe it is a survival state. And that state is not emotional, it is physiological. And stress hormones surge and inflammation goes up, and the nervous system shifts into fight or flight. We talk about this constantly. And those chemical signals cause epigenetic changes that turn stress genes on, turn repair and growth genes off, and alter immune response, rewire emotional regulation. This is the same mechanism described by epigenetics, right? So DNA methylation and histone changes, they literally silence or amplify specific genes. And I've kind of hit this part ad nauseum, but I need people to understand that these things become inherited vulnerabilities. And when those stress-coded epigenetic patterns reach reproductive cells, they can be passed on. That means children inherit not just DNA, but the way the DNA has been trained or behaved. This is why, this is the mechanism, right? And in biological terms, this looks like a curse in certain aspects, right? Like when we talk about addiction and rage and depression and anxiety, autoimmune illnesses and abusive relationship patterns, right? Even when children grow up in safe homes, like my kids, their bodies can still be tuned for danger. Why is that? And that's why. And that shockingly, like I had said just a second ago, shockingly looks like a curse. But people would science just calls it epigenetic inheritance. Different language, same phenomenon.
No,
I'm
it's a
not
great,
saying that
great.
demons live in. Go ahead. Sorry,
No,
Ethan.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I just was saying it's a great esoteric take on that biblical lesson, if you will.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that like demons live in DNA,
super important,
right? I'm not saying that they live in DNA. I'm just saying that you're not claiming. I'm not claiming that spiritual beings physically reside in chromosomes here, guys. What I am saying is that spiritual and emotional realities do change biology through known pathways, period. And this is exactly what neuroscience shows through thoughts, beliefs, and emotional states. I mean, we know that they alter cortisol levels and inflammation, all the things, brain wiring, gene expression, all of it, right? So when scripture talks about repentance or healing or forgiveness and renewal, that aligns with biology, period. These practices send new signals to the body that can reverse epigenetic locks and restore function. And where theology and neuroscience meet, the Bible says identity, truth, and spiritual alignment bring freedom. Neuroscience says safety, regulation, and coherence bring healing. Both point to the same outcome, restoration of the whole person. So spiritual realities imprint biological outcomes because the human being is not divided into spiritual and physical halves. We are one integrated system. And that's frankly what this is all about. And I need people, I really work so people see that. And whatever your beliefs are, at the end of the day, we're not separated things. We are integrated spiritual and physical beings in one, right? So
yeah,
beautiful.
I totally forgot. I mean, even I would just assume the technology we have could force that to happen. I mean, looking at our phones and the computer and the TV.
Why couldn't they? Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, think about all the traumatic shit you watch now, and you're just desensitized to it.
Yes. You could be flipping switches. You could be flipping keys all day looking at the TV. It's like just
yeah.
And there's a whole pattern change that looking at the phones is actually causing on young people's bodies. They're getting like a certain curvature in their upper back or neck bone because they spend so much time.
I probably have the fucking
not in alignment, right? Yeah. Oh, well, a lot of people get it just by we all are dealing with gravity, right? We should a Tai Chi recommendation: just practice standing in alignment every once in a while. It's kind of a pattern changer. But young people, yeah, they're like almost developing a physically different bone.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Set good patterns.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can get deep into this stuff too, where you bring up bringing in stuff like the mark of the beast. Like, what is that? You know, things along those lines. You know, that's CRISPR. It could be all kinds of shit, but I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole.
Not yet.
Yeah, but you could. I mean, in all honesty, it's so. Yeah, man. I think at the end of the day, I think this is the type of knowledge that makes people understand that. First off, we don't know shit. Yes. Second off, that we really need to be more open-minded than we are as a species and just knock it off. Knock it off. Like, I'm not trying to be all kumbaya, right? But enough. You see all this nonsense going on all over the freaking planet that, and 90% of it doesn't matter. So
I agree.
And we argue about the dumbest shit ever.
Oh, right.
So yeah, one of my daughters is like a reality TV junkie, and it's like, dude, what in the hell are you doing? Like, you can fine.
Oh,
You're so smart. Like, what are you doing? So
you know how twisted shit's got? You got fucking the left actually video recording themselves shooting guns and holding guns now.
Yeah.
How the fuck did you get yourself get there from a few months ago?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Like, and the shit we fight over makes no sense. I mean, I was this professional. I'll be honest. Which people that know me know. I was a professional soldier for my entire adult life until, in one form or fashion, for a full 30 years of my life, and enough. I've seen enough for it's just gross
everywhere. Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's just disgusting and it's gross, and people need to knock it off. And
humanity is really getting like the really good look at its ugliest side.
Oh, it's so horrific, man, that I just can't. I don't participate in the bullshit as much. I just try to like do research and write books on spiritual warfare and like just try to help people and like plant seeds in their minds how ridiculous so much stuff is, and that some of the stuff I talk about, it's ridiculous too. Some of the shit that we talk about on this show and others is just absolute insanity, but it's like, at least some of it could matter.
So it's theories, it's ideas.
Yeah. So we're talking about saving the world. We're talking about solving all the world's problems. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I want to be the best human I can be. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that, sir.
And help others do the same.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. If you want, we can probably wrap it up now too, if you like.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I've kind of said everything that I need to say, and it's a shorter episode, but
Oh no, that's fine. Believe me, sometimes
we don't need to drag it out. I think
yeah,
the other rabbit hole I just don't want to go down. It's just people get it triggers people too. So
it's a very inspiring idea, Bennett. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for
well, yeah,
encapsulating it in the
Ethan.
There he is. There he is. Oh, wait.
No, sorry. I'm sorry. I was saying it's am I on now?
Yeah.
It's such a great lesson you put forth. And I love how you encapsulate it with the Christian lesson correspondence too. It's really, really powerful, beautiful.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be Christian. You can look at it through any lens that you want, if whichever, lens you want to look at it through. It's incorporated. This is universal language here, folks. And that's what I need people to see, is that all of our bullshit speaks the same fucking language. Stop trying to transfer it to something that's not. So
it's just a great take on the covenant idea and all the curses and the healing. It's a great series of lessons. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for letting me on Cardinal Electric Head. I appreciate it.
I would even say, just when it comes to DNA, I would even think that's such a huge symbol, I think, in occultism that people don't.
Oh, God, yeah.
I do think there's occult science, and if it's in occultism, that could also be like numbers and shit are being involved. I could see how.
Yeah.
I think all that's it all ties in. Believe me.
It's all because all the shit, man, all the practices, all the things, they all rhyme, dude. I say this ad nauseum over and over and over again. They all rhyme. They're all coming from the same freaking place, guys. Sorry. They're all coming from whatever you want to call it. They're all coming from the same place.
Yep. All right. So before we wrap it up, and before Ethan falls off again, can we lose him? Do you want to let everybody know where they can find you at, sir?
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with my poor internet. I really, really appreciate those ideas. And I'm easy to find on the internet. I'm writing books infrequently and sharing articles frequently. And I'm going to drop one on Occult Research Institute here soon, in correspondence with the reading and great lessons you and Headless are doing for the 777 book. I have a 777 arithmetic equation that I'm going to share on the Occult Research Institute here soon. And so, and I do writing and like I said, occasional research when the gravity of the mundanity of the so appreciate you guys.
Perfect.
Thanks, you made it. All right, thank you so much, Ethan. I definitely appreciate you coming on. You always have great questions and great stuff to add. Bennett, please let everybody know what's up with you, where they can find you.
So again, broadcastingseeds.com. You can find everything there, Instagram, YouTube, all the things. And check out my book. The War You Didn't Know You Were In. You can buy it on Amazon. I mean, if you go through my website, it's still Amazon. So that's what you were getting at earlier, Nick. Yeah. But, you might just like it. You never know. But check out Broadcasting Seeds and come say hi. If there's anybody out there that wants to come on the show and talk about something, just reach out. Let me know. So Nick will be on there in a few weeks.
Oh yeah,
fun episode. Actually, the second time that you were on there, but this episode's way better than the first one. So
just really good. I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So that's where you can check me out, and of course Nick and Ethan. Always good to see you guys, and I greatly appreciate what you do there, Cardinal.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, man. I appreciate you all coming on. I guess for the people listening, we also got Headless is doing his thing tonight, the mailbag and the symbols. So keep an eye out for that. I think that's at 8:30. And then I think we're gonna have Meta Mystics on at like 10 o'clock tonight, Eastern time. So check that out. It should be on for that. If not, then it'll be over on Jules' channel. But I'm pretty sure we'll be doing it here. So in case people got nothing to do later on, we got 2 more lives coming up actually. So, but thank you all, and thank you everybody in the chat. That's what's up. That's why I go live. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.